Welcome, 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 everyone. It is such a thrill to be up here to say that to you today on this auspicious, gorgeous San Francisco afternoon. We are here today to witness the breaking of ground on the construction of the new SFJAZZ Center. I'm Srinivas Srinivasan. I chair the board of directors for SFJAZZ, and I'm joined here today by many of my colleagues on the board. And on their behalf, let me just tell you how proud and how excited and how delighted we are that we get to share this celebration with you here today. This is truly a momentous occasion. This moment right now marks the beginning of a fantastic chapter for SFJAZZ, for the vibrant cultural landscape of the San Francisco Bay Area, and for the global jazz community and its growth and development. And we just couldn't be happier to be at this place. And we couldn't be here today but for the spectacular vision and tireless shepherding of that vision by our founder and executive artistic director, who has been seeing this moment to its fruition now for almost 3 decades, and that's Randall Klein. So you'll be hearing some words from Randall shortly, and you'll be hearing some brief remarks from several key folks who've been involved in this awesome project. And then we're going to open it up for some questions, and then we're going to get the hammers out. So let's just get right on with the show. First of all, it is my great pleasure to introduce the most talented actor, producer, and musician, Terrence Howard. Terrence is here to read a message from a special friend who couldn't be with us here in person today. Terrence Howard.
Hi, my name's Terrence Howard, and I would like to start by saying it's an incredible honor to be here on such a strange event and calling it a groundbreaking event, but that's what exactly it is. You know, jazz is an American art form. It's one of the few truly indigenous art forms that we have created as a collective people since our initial migration and immigration into this country. And now for it to have a home on the West Coast, one that can match the home that sits on the East Coast at Lincoln Center, it gives us so much pleasure and honor to even be a part of this. But there's a great lover of jazz by the name of Harry Belafonte, you know, who's an artist and great in one of the greatest esteems that people can be an artist as. A singer, a musician, and someone who can use his voice and his body and his talents to express the human condition. Well, he sent a letter, and I have the privilege of reading it for you. It says, "Those of us who are engaged in the world of the arts are indeed fortunate that the San Francisco Jazz Center is becoming a reality. Jazz has often been referred to as an original American art form, and many of us would attest to that fact. However, though, through the years, jazz has seen its peaks and its valleys. Some days it appears as if it will be lost forever, but somehow it manages to endure, and this facility will ensure that the life of this art form will be around for many generations to come. I hope America will recognize the potential of the San Francisco Jazz Center and support it to the fullest. With best wishes, Harry Belafonte." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terrence, and thank you, Harry. And now it's my honor to invite Mayor Edwin Lee to say a few words.
Thank you very much. I am so lucky to be part of this great, great city and all of the talent that it has, and to be now today to welcome in this new San Francisco Jazz Center. And I see here my colleague, Supervisor Eric Mars here. I know, Amos, we talking about bringing more soul into the city. Isn't this the right way to do it? Absolutely. And, you know, I'm reminded every day that what's really missing in this city? It's got to be jazz. Got to have more jazz here, because that's what makes me whole, really. And I'm looking at this building, and you see muffler, you see brakes, you see oil slick ground. Well, maybe in a year, maybe less, you're going to go from oil slick floors to a slick design for a new jazz center. $60 million of privately raised money, Randy. Randall, that is such an incredible, incredible feat for the board of directors who have, I think, gotten this message about how important to have a jazz center here, that when you see this design will rival, if not be comparable, to the Kennedy Center and to the Lincoln Center here right in San Francisco. You are absolutely right, Taylor, for just expressing that this is our San Francisco and we deserve a jazz center. It's a center that's going to have a 600-seat performance theater. We'll have breakouts to educational centers. We'll have an 80-person seat a performance smaller center, but have the ability to house 700 people if we want to have a performance. And then we'll have classes. It will produce educational classes for our kids. It will be a stand-up center on its own, and it will be revitalizing this whole area that I think will bring excitement as well, and will complement all the other cultural arts that we have all in this area too. But to have our own jazz center that has this kind of future vision for our jazz performance, and to be able to have the educational things to go with it, and to make sure that's a center that's consistent with all of our new buildings. It will be LEED Gold in its design, developed by a very renowned architect, Mark Cavanero's firm, working with Hathaway and Dinwiddie in constructing this building. It also has the 600 construction jobs that we create the next 1.5 years. That's another jazz sound to my ear that rings with them. It also will double the current jazz staffing from some 26 they have now to 50 full-time people who will be working here producing jazz education, jazz performances, and to welcome in a whole new additional generation of not only performances but of education. So I am extremely proud of what this represents. It is bringing soul into this city when we need it, at a time when people need hope. We are trying to make these jobs local. These will be jobs that are local because we're going to grow this music here. And it's just such a wonderful thing for me to know that jazz will be here permanently throughout my history here, throughout many, many more generations. So I am welcoming this with such delight, and to also make sure that you know that it is part of our commitment to have art and culture reflective of what San Francisco has been about for many, many years. So I'm glad to introduce the next speaker, and I hope she's here. She is right here. And that's the director of our grants for the arts, Carrie Schulman. Come on up, Carrie.
Let's hear it again for Marilee. You know, I think the reason that this took so long to get going was because Randall was waiting for Ed Lee to be mayor in order so that Ed could sling the first sledgehammer. I think that's what we were waiting for. This, by the way, is entirely fraudulent. I have no prepared remarks, but I do want to give you a couple of quick anecdotes, because I think I probably go back as long with, in fact, I know that I go back as long with this organization as anyone on the planet, with the exception of Randall, who came into my office. You might have heard this anecdote, but I'm going to tell it again because I love it. He came into my office with his friend Clint Gilbert, and they said, we need a jazz festival. And I'd been in my job a very short time, and I didn't know that when someone comes into your office and says, we need a festival, that you should ask, you know, a few questions and maybe call for security. But I didn't know that. So I said, okay, sounds good. We were able to give them $5,000. They got it matched by the San Francisco Foundation, and that was the seed money. And then they were so successful that I thought, well, this is how it works. An organization starts with $10,000, and 25 to 30 years later, they build a $60 million building. But in fact, that's not how it works. that only works when you have the kind of leadership and consistency and vision that Randall and the Jazz Festival, his team with SFJAZZ, have. It's very unusual and so precious, I can't tell you. Randall and I probably have lunch once a year, and for about 20 years at our annual lunch, he would say, "We're closing in on a building. We're getting really close." A year would go by, we'd have our annual lunch again. I would say, "How's it going with the building?" He said, "Well, there were issues. There were issues with that building, there were issues with that location, but we're looking at some other things." That went on, truly, no exaggeration, for 20 years. And then finally they found this space, this building, the perfect space, the perfect building, the perfect moment. So I'm so, so thrilled to be here. And I hope to be here when it opens, and you're going to have to hear those same anecdotes again. Thank you. And to the arts, leadership is what location is to real estate. So leadership, leadership, leadership with Randall and with our next speaker, the Executive Operating Director, Felice Swap.
Thanks, everybody, for coming out. It's kind of a beautiful day to be here. I just wanted to say a few words. First off, Mark, would you wave back there, Mr. Cavaniero? He's our architect. He has designed this building with as much love, spirit, and attention as I think any architect could possibly put into a design. We think it's his masterwork, even though he has a number of buildings around the city. We think this is going to be this. And this building of concrete, steel, glass, this transparent structure that's sitting here on the corner of Franklin and Fell, for us, and Mark understood that, it's much more than the building. It's all about what happens with it. It's transparent because we want it to be with the community and the community to be with us. It's light and it's future-looking and it's an active and forward-thinking design because we are poised here in a position where we can have a flexible building focused on young musicians, the new art, on education, as well as local artists and all the tradition that has been brought from points beyond to points right now. It's an exciting moment with all of that design principle brought into this space. And if you could feel and comprehend the vibe that Kerry Shulman referred to that has been existing within Randall's heart from point of inception through now, we believe that as you come to this building, once it's constructed, you will feel and have that vibe within your heart, within your mind, within your soul, and within the essence that is innovation, that is jazz. So thank you for coming. I'd like to introduce now someone who speaks to the future of our art form, a winner of multiple Downbeat Awards and other awards. She's a vocalist with our SFJAZZ High School All-Stars Orchestra, Miss Lila Smith.
Hi, my name is Lila Smith. I'm from San Jose, California. I'm a sophomore and I go to Marin School of the Arts. This is my first year with the SFJAZZ All-Stars. I've been called a vocalist, a pianist, composer, arranger, even a choir director, and I've taught music in the public schools in San Jose. I, like all of my band members, have been honored with awards from groups like Downbeat, Monterey, and ASCAP. But I know of music programs from middle schools to universities with legacies of decades of award-winning work that are at risk or have simply disappeared. We have all read about how budget cuts are forcing states, cities, and school districts into difficult choices, and eliminating arts education seems to be the easiest choice to make. Stepping up to fill the gap are organizations like SFJAZZ. SFJAZZ has given me the opportunity to meet, work with some of the best of the young musicians in the Bay Area, or rather the country, that I hope will be my lifelong friends. SFJAZZ has taken us to New Orleans, the birthplace of jazz. SFJAZZ has introduced us to the masters of the art. Old masters like our band director, Paul Contos, and young masters like the people in the collective. They have challenged us to practice and explore and find our voice. But I want to emphasize that jazz is not about winning awards, even though it was awesome to see Esperanza Spalding win the Best New Artist Award at the Grammys. It's not about locking yourself in a practice room with a metronome. It's not about the right notes, being in the pocket, or even making the changes. But it is about passion. Jazz is vulnerable, honest, and real. It's about pouring out your heart and your soul and telling a story. Jazz comes from the soul and speaks to the soul. It's about understanding its history and honoring its past. understanding one's life story, and joining a musical conversation as part of a community. And that is why building a home for us here will be so important to help the community grow. It will take the rest of my life to search out the meaning of jazz, but with the help of SFJAZZ, I've already begun. Now I'm honored to introduce one of the world's greatest percussionists, John Santos.
Thank you very much. What a pleasure and honor for me to be here as a native San Franciscan, as a musician who had the honor of playing in the very first jazz festival here in San Francisco in 1983, and being involved in different capacities. I also have to tip my hat to Mr. Randall Klein, who his vision, it's not totally surprising, but I know how difficult it's been to see where it's come from that very first one that happened around the corner at the Herbst Theater, to what it's grown into and what it's come to this. So really a beautiful and well-deserved honor for Randall, for the city, for all of us. I think from the perspective of a musician, it means a great deal to have a place like this that where we can come to perform, to play, to teach, to learn. It's a center where a lot of activity is going to happen, and we know that it's going to be embraced by everybody. Everybody's excited about it happening. We have to acknowledge that jazz is our national art form, and unfortunately it's not respected as such. And even as the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences is cutting, as we speak, eliminating categories of jazz from the Grammys, we have to know that this kind of a thing is something that flies in the face of that and opposes that and holds jazz up for what it represents, which is our country and truly what American culture stands for, the diversity. So I just want to say that from the perspective of a community that has always appreciated the fact that the San Francisco Jazz Festival has been from the beginning, from its inception, a model for jazz festivals around the world in terms of the type of music, the range of music that is presented, and the care and the love that is given. We're more than happy, and I'm excited. I don't know if you could tell or not, but I'm excited about this. So thank you, congratulations, and now I have the honor to introduce to you a colleague who also, speaking of Grammys, has been Grammy nominated. He might have even won a Grammy for all I know by now. But anyway, that's Stefan Harris. Please welcome Stefan Harris.
Yeah, I'm a little shorter. Let's bring this mic down. Well, I'm a member of the SFJAZZ Collective, and I'm here to share my enthusiasm about what's going to happen here in this space. Jazz is an amazing art form. I know I'm speaking to the choir, but I don't mind. I'm going to say it again and again because I absolutely love this music. This is one of America's greatest cultural contributions to the world, and it's something that we should all really be proud of. This is an art form that could have only been created in America because of the unique confluence of European culture with African culture and Native American traditions. So it's really, really incredible. When I think about the opportunities that I've received in my lifetime from being able to participate in this art form, I don't even know what else I could say about it other than it saved my life. I could have been doing all types of bad things, but when I discovered this art form, it gave me a lifelong passion. It wakes me up in the middle of the night. Sometimes I can't even sleep because I have ideas flowing in my mind that I have to get out. And I really know that these types of things wouldn't be possible without people who have a lot of vision like Randall Klein, who almost 30 years ago dreamed of something like this happening. So he's a great inspiration for me as well. What's going to be happening inside of these four walls is amazing. The great tradition of jazz, which is a tradition that teaches us primarily about focusing on the things that unite us. And it also teaches us about the illusion of the things that divide us. When we're on the bandstand, all of those illusions disappear. It's only ultimately about connectivity. So inside of these four walls, that great tradition will continue, from having performers like the great Sonny Rollins and legends like Bobby Hutcherson, pass that tradition on to ensembles like the SFJAZZ Collective, and in turn on to ensembles like the SFJAZZ High School All-Stars. So it is my great pleasure to be here. I'm sincerely proud to be a part of this music in whatever way I can participate. And with that being said, I'd like to introduce you to the current president of the NAACP, Mr. Ben Jealous.
I walked around because I wasn't sure that Reverend Brown could do that with his cane. Well, this is a great day, And I wanted to share it with Reverend Brown, who's been our longtime head of the NAACP here in San Francisco. Because jazz is one of the things that unite us. You know, jazz is the people's music. We've heard that it's the music that brings people together. It is also the language of rebellion in this country. As a child, I grew up heavily influenced by my grandfather, who was a probation officer by day and a jazz musician by night. And his basement bar was a watering hole for men who had worked as lawyers on Brown versus Board of Education and who had peacefully led a great insurrection against segregation in the South. And there was one rule in my grandfather's basement, which was that you were not allowed to talk until the A side was over. The B side, he was convinced, was there for yelling over, really. There were quite boisterous debates, but you drank and you listened to the A side. As I listen to Stefan, I see Josh Redman, I'm reminded how much harder it has become just in one generation for the next generation of jazz musicians to rise up in this country, the cutting of music programs and so forth. And so I think that what has been done here, both the vision of Randall, but also the vision of the donors, people like Rob and Nicola, is tremendous, because young people need a place to shoot for, a place to aim for, something that makes visible their ambitions, and this will be that. At the NAACP, we run a program in 200 communities called the AXO program to encourage the next generation of performers, including jazz musicians. And we want all those young people in those 200 places across this country to be able to shoot to be here. Reverend Brown, do you want to say something?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, I just wish to say that as president of the local branch, I'm delighted to be here with our national president, Mr. Ben Jealous. He's very aptly stated in a great fashion what this enterprise is all about. But in addition to what he said, I would remind you all that when the NAACP was founded, there were those in that room in 1909 who wanted to name the organization the National Association for Black People, the National Association for Negro People. But it was W.B. Du Bois who said, in this nation, there are many marginalized people who've been looked over and left out, and they are not just black people. Dr. Du Bois said, the right apt name for this association is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And it was Kwesi Nfume, one of our national leaders, who said, color comes in all colors. So this day, we are delighted to join with you in saying what we dedicate as the beginning of this great jazz expression that we're housed in this building is the idea that there are those in this nation who got it wrong. We claim that the nation is a melting pot. No, at best, America should be a salad bowl, someone said. And a salad is more nutritious than having a pot of soup and meat. And indeed, jazz to the soul, Mr. Mayor, is more meaningful and indeed makes America what it ought to be, a place in which there are variations on the theme and nobody has the last note, but all notes can come forth and say, I got a better note above your note, that we will bring together and create harmony and not dissonance in this nation. God bless you. Let's get on with the soul of jazz and making America what it ought to be.
Man that needs no introduction. It's funny, my friend Ben Jealous and I say friend now after he didn't introduce me, we actually had the great privilege to be in Springfield, Illinois when Obama declared that he was going to run for president. And I remember coming back and saying to him, you know, you think he can do it? And Ben said, yeah. And I thought, no. And I know when we talked about this project before it even really got going, I said, Ben said, do you think you can do it? And I said, yes. And Ben said, no. So, as friends, it's always great because when we're together, we're never wrong. And I think that points to the music, too. When we're all together, we're never wrong. And this building is very much about that, bringing the Western Addition and the Mission finally into play here, into our arts corridor. And as a representative here of the Minor Anderson family, it's a great honor that inside this building, the SF Jazz Center, we'll have the Robert N. Minor Auditorium. Bob Minor was one of the founders of Oracle, and he loved listening to jazz. And to quote his daughter, my wife, he said he would have been proud to help establish a new cultural institution dedicated to jazz in San Francisco. The cutting-edge music and vibrant building well represent his daring intellect and sense of inclusiveness. And I think that's partly what we're all striving for here. As Bob's partner, Larry Ellison, once pointed out about Bob, he was loyal to the people, not to the company. So I think that's a very important thing to think about when we start playing the first notes of our song here, that I hope is going to be a part of the songbook of America, in the same way that 100 years ago we started with the symphony, 25 years ago they got a building, 80 years ago we had an opera, and then 80 years ago San Francisco had the first professional ballet company in the United States. We're going to go forward with that. It also makes me happy that the Green Room will be named after a musician, Lester Young, who was playing a recorded version in the hospital room when my first son was being born. He was playing, oddly enough, Pennies from Heaven, which might be a reminder to my atheist wife and my agnostic self that there could be something higher. But that was 5 years almost to the day that my father-in-law passed away. And so I think the Green Room is very important because it's a place of preparation before someone goes out and brings forward themselves and comes into this world with their song. And the other thing I'd like to note is that the alleyway here will be called Raise Up Off Me Alley, after Don Asher's collaboration with the great Hampton Hawes, a West Coast hero from LA who migrated up and around, but also to our shores here in San Francisco, Don Asher also being a piano player. And in that sentiment, we wanted to go wider with our better selves and our artistic selves, and to open up the dialogue that includes words, that includes photography, that includes dance, that includes every kind of expression. And also to note not just a tribute to a jazz musician's work, but to a life, to a jazz life, and not a jazz era life of F. Scott Fitzgerald brand, but to a bop era life, to a tough life, to a life played out during the freedom movement and during the civil rights era, and to just a genius who, despite obstacles, kept playing and kept playing. And early on got inspired by Charlie Parker and kept playing. And despite the fact that other people were dealing with drug abuse, including himself, he kept playing. And when he was in prison for that drug abuse, he saw a gentleman take the podium to become the president of the United States in the form of John F. Kennedy. And he said, there's a cat that's going to want to know something's wrong in his kingdom, even if it's being done in the dungeon. And a year and a half after spending 3 years in prison, he wrote for an appeal to John F. Kennedy. And that appeal was processed. It was the second to a last appeal that John F. Kennedy ever gave. And Hampton Hawes became a free man. And everybody said that was a miracle. Everybody just kept saying that's a goddamn miracle. And Hampton Hawes says, no, there couldn't be anything more ordinary. He said it was basically just, let me get this right, it was the most ordinary thing in the world. Someone was watching out over the country. And so all of us right now are watching out over the country. And we're trying to reflect our better selves and export our better selves, and then have that conversation come back in the form of music, in the form of jazz, in the form of conversation, right here at the SF Jazz Center. And so with that in mind, I want to introduce the person who saw all of this way before anybody else did. A person who was messaging tickets and wanted a job at the boarding house. I think that's how he got into showbiz. But as someone said earlier, this is in his soul and it's in his heart, and he's been working very, very, very hard for this vision. It's my huge pleasure to introduce Randall Klein.
Thank you all. A little context. First of all, it's unbelievable to be standing here in front of this building right now for me. Carrie Shulman, who spoke earlier, and Mayor Lee as well, talked about the beginnings and the idea of gratitude. Well, I have a great deal of gratitude for Carrie for not knowing what to do in her office that day and getting us that grant that got us on our way. But the one thought that I did have in the initiation of this organization was looking down the street a little bit here, looking at Davies Symphony Hall and saying, if it's possible to do something like that for a symphonic organization, or looking at the Opera House to the opera, might it not be possible to do something like this for jazz? And unbelievable. We're here. We're doing it. We're doing it due to a lot of people, and this is the real gratitude part. First of all, the staff of SF Jazz, the staff present, the staff past. There has been just an incredible amount of dedication and passion that those people have given to this organization, to me personally, to get us to here. So thank you, and the current staff led by Felice Swap, my co-director. Thank you all. Also want to thank our board of trustees, dedicated people that without them this would not be possible. Robert, who is one of the chairs of the Capital Campaign, who spoke without introduction here, and a member of our board of trustees. He and Srinija, our board chair, and other members of the board that are here present today have worked very, very hard to get us here, so I thank them, and we all should thank them as well too. And let's not forget the musicians, because none of this would be possible whatsoever without musicians. And there's a lot of great musicians out here today. Some of you've heard speak. John Handy is out to the stage left right here, I see. We have, I think, Joshua Redmond standing in the back right here. Joshua was the artistic director of our spring season and artistic director of the SF Jazz Collective and founding member of that. We have members of the collective here, Avishai Cohen, Robin Eubanks, and of course Stefan Harris, who spoke earlier. And the more gratitude is really San Francisco. This is a project I believe really that could only happen here in San Francisco. The support, this is a city that it's a city I'm so grateful to have stumbled upon, which is what I did when I moved here. And Rob was referring, my first job here was as a bike messenger, actually, before I got my job at the boarding house. And the gifts that this city has bestowed upon me have been unbelievable. So. More musicians. We haven't acknowledged the Green Street Mortuary Band that is, and who play a very significant role in I believe in San Francisco culture. I lived for many years in North Beach, one of the great neighborhoods of the city and a great neighborhood for jazz. It was the home of Keystone Corner, a place that I really got my jazz education. And I would hear these musicians play on Saturday morning when I would walk my son to the Cafe Trieste, and they would be playing for funerals, marching through North Beach into Chinatown. And what I learned quickly was that they sounded great, and there was a reason they sounded great. They were all jazz musicians playing. And so we're going to hear from them a little bit to close things out here, and it's appropriate that a mortuary band would be playing for the demise of this building. And a big thank you to all of you. Every one of you has made this happen. We have a long way to go here. This is just the beginning. We're going to need everyone, all the support we can get to make this thing happen. This is a proud moment for me personally. This is really a proud moment for San Francisco and all of us who worked on this. So thank you all, and we'll see you at the building.
Sandow. Did you get Sandow and Josh, Redmond? And Elise.
All right.